Politics, much like life, needs to be taken with a sense of humor. Politics and politicians naturally lend themselves to parody and satire. Perhaps why they're the most loved targets of comedians across the world. In India, of course, comedians and cartoonists are learning the tough way that politicians have very thin skins. But can parody or satire or opinion be clubbed with fake news? That is a question at the crux of the raging debate in the Bombay High Court over the government's proposed fact-check unit. This is a little complicated, so do hear me out. Just be a little patient. IT rules in this country have been amended to make this unit a reality. Its job, says the government, is to deal with the curse of fake news. Well, fake news connected with the central government only. But why has the fact-check unit been dragged to court? After all, fake news is a curse in this country, we all agree, and its biggest disseminator is social media, WhatsApp especially. If the government wants to intercept fake news and get it taken down, what could possibly be the problem with that? It's a good thing, right? Well, comedian Kunal Kamra does have a problem with it. He says the unit's job description is scary at multiple levels. One, in an environment where people are already scared to say anything against the Modi government, the fact-check unit becomes a tool for intimidation. You say something satirical about the government, your content will be pulled down from YouTube or Facebook without even being asked for an explanation. You will not even be asked for an explanation. It will simply be pulled down. This, says Kunal Kamra, directly impacts his bread and butter since his content, like other stand-up comedians, is on social media. Secondly, he says, as in when the government's fact-check unit comes into being, it will be the judge, jury, executor of its own case. No one will be allowed to appeal the matter. In effect, it will make the government the final arbiter of truth online. A dangerous proposition by all counts, and one that infringes on an individual's right to freedom of expression. Now, Kunal Kamra, whose satire leans very heavily on criticizing the Modi government, has therefore challenged the formation of this fact-check unit. The matter is currently being heard in the Bombay High Court, and today, the Bombay High Court agreed with Kunal Kamra that the proposed fact-check unit does not seem to protect fair criticism of the government through parody or satire. Now, the government on its part is insisting that satire in India is safe and that the fact-check unit is critical at a time when fake news spreads faster than the truth. But here's the thing. One man's satire could be another man's fake news. Where do we draw the line? And why is the government only interested in controlling fake news around its policies and officials and ministers, and not fake news about other much more important things like communal narratives and unscientific mumbo-jumbo over health and medicines? You know what I mean? If you look at your WhatsApp every morning, I'm fairly certain you know what I mean. Let me put those questions to my guests who are joining me this evening. I'm going to request all of them to be brief because this is a complicated subject. It can lend itself to complexities. We can't do away with it. But I'll ask my guests to keep it as simple as possible and as short as possible as well. Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. Shekhar Vijayan is a comedian. He's a stand-up artist. He's joining us on the broadcast. Abhishek Malhotra is managing partner at the TMT Law. And Anil Tyagi is a journalist. Let me come to Sanjay Hegde first. Sanjay Hegde, we all agree that fake news is a curse in this country, right? The government in its affidavit, in fact, has gone on to quote an MIT study that says that there are 70% chances of fake news being retweeted than the truth. That fake news spreads 6 times faster than the truth. Now, fake news needs to be controlled. The fact-check unit will be a tool in doing that. Why think of that as motivated and dangerous?
You know, the fact-check unit reminds me of that great ministry from George Orwell, the Ministry of Truth. determines what the truth will be. And what the party determines as truth, nobody else can be at variance. And everything else is then fixed along to see that that is the true sense of the record. Now, the large theory of freedom of speech is that the answer to a speech is more speech. Supposing somebody tweets out something which is fake, obviously it will be corrected by others who will also tweet out the correct version. Yes, there is a problem because with social media, you have an amplification of speech, which where certain aspects get amplified and certain others just go by the wayside. So if you have something like an IT cell amplifying one particular version, then that might tend to be the normally accepted state of things, whereas the real truth will get concealed. But why should a government be concerned with what is true and what is not true, except in crucial cases? Supposing there is something like hate speech, which could have consequences of violence, which could affect law and order, yes. There may be a government website saying that, no, this is the correct state of affairs, against which people can check, yes. This particular unit seems to have overbroad powers. Now, in the garb of putting down content, say in a Kunal Kamra show, maybe one sentence is wrong, factually wrong. Do you take down the whole show? Or do you excise only that part? Or do you go the whole hog and say this fellow is a frequent offender, so we'll bring down his YouTube channel altogether? That is great unbridled power. These and other questions will come up before the courts. Right now, we are still at the stage of the notification of the rules and their possible challenges on constitutionality. But as and when they finally come into being, I do expect more challenges in specific fact situations to come to courts.
Okay. Abhishek Malhotra, then the questions that are being raised are two. A, why should the government concern itself with whether there is the correct reporting of any of their policies, etc. Their fact check should be restricted to situations where there's a law and order problem. Secondly, the bigger problem seems to be, and most critics of the government's fact check unit seem to be saying that this, like Mr. Hague raised, that this gives the unit and the government unbridled power, and essentially it is a tool to silence any criticism against the government. And a large part of this criticism, and very effective criticism, comes through people like Kunal Kamra or Varun Grover. Satire, after all, is the best and the most effective tool of communication, and that is what the government is trying to control.
My response to that is there is nothing in these amendments that seems to point out. I mean, the narrative that is being created is that this seems to be aimed at curbing free speech and specifically hitting at satire and aspects that a petitioner has challenged in this case. But when you read the provision, it is an amendment to the existing provision, which nevertheless gave the powers to an authorized entity, whether it is the government or the police or the court, to take action against an intermediary that does not take down the content which is claimed to be falling within the parameters of the issue that is raised in that particular rule, that is 31B sub rule 5. So we are, I think, jumping the gun here. Very clearly the Supreme Court, even in Shreya Singhal, has said that there is a distinction that exists between any other platform and the internet, which is why even when they did strike down the specific provision in Shreya Singhal 66, if I'm not mistaken, they clearly and categorically said that they're not doing so. They've repelled the challenge under Article 14 to say that this is making a distinction between television, print, and internet on the other hand. They're saying that internet is very different. And the manner in which the news or supposed facts or those aspects can be spread across the social media platforms, it is at a different speed and a different impact altogether. Ultimately, any such action that is proposed to be taken by the fact check unit or the government, as the case may be, will be tested on the touchstone of 19.2, whether this law provides for a reasonable restriction, whether this law in practice, when it's once it's implemented, really addresses the issues, or really sort of brings this within the parameters
Okay.
of issues like the
But
relations with friendly countries, or with security of the state, or with public order. Ultimately, the
but
decisions on
Mr.
whether or
Malhotra,
not any of these
point
is
is,
impacted will be
point
taken
is,
by the central government through a law. This is what is done. So I
point
don't
is
see what
news.
the
Okay,
brouhaha is
point
about,
is,
even
point
before.
is, you're, okay, okay, you're saying that maybe Kunal Kamra jumped the gun. It's too early to start criticizing this unit when it has not even been notified. A fact is that uh, internet is the place where most people are now consuming most of the news. Let's accept that. And therefore, when you try and control it, are you trying to control the news as well? That is one question. And secondly, you're saying we're jumping the gun. Are we really jumping the gun? Has Kunal Kamra really jumped the gun? Shekhar Vijayan, I want to ask you, because there are a lot of people who have asked, but Kunal Kamra से इससे क्या लेना देना? IT amendment rules, IT rules amend हो रहे हैं इस देश में, and there is a fact check unit that is coming into being. What does this have to do with Kunal Kamra? After all, this unit is to check fake news and nothing else. So please tell me, how does a satirist or a comedian get impacted if India's IT rules are being changed to quote unquote curb fake news?
Shreya, thank you for having me over. I think satire is the best way of punching up. And we've seen that happen in the past too. I think the previous governments in the past, not just the current government, the previous governments, they've all been scared of comedy in some form because they feel satire is a way by which people punch up. But if you look at it, there's a lot of fake news around us. I keep getting good morning messages from my mom, from my family, which is full of fake news on WhatsApp. Right now, we are living in a world where everybody wants to be the first to publish news out first, which may not necessarily be true or real or practical. And I think satire, in a way, is just humor. Satire is just a way of just art, and I don't think art can be so harmful or so vengeful to bring a government down or to bring any administration down. I think the entire point here is it's just satire. It's just simple satire, just simple storytelling, and that's what it's all about. Ultimately, that's what is important. I think what the government should really focus on is on fake news, is on news which is very inflammatory in nature, which can cause communal riots, which can lead to mayhem and chaos and confusion. Whereas I don't think comedy in any form can cause that, because I think comedy is meant to make people laugh. Comedy is meant to make people have a good time. Comedy is meant to just people, comedy is just a source of entertainment. I don't see the government is doing a splendid job, but they need to be also conscious of the fact that how people look at it, how they perceive, how they think, and how they react to the situation around them. I think the bigger issue here is the fake news. The bigger issue here is inflammatory news, which is being there. The bigger news is I think the bigger issues are around communal rights. The bigger issues are around fake news, which is floating around, and we're all privy to it. I think right now we're living in a generation where everybody wants to be the first to spread news, whether good news or bad news or moderate news. And I think that's something the government should really look at rather than focusing on satire or storytelling or on comedy. Because at the end of the day, like I said, comedy is just entertainment.
Well,
comedy is just a reflection of what the society thinks.
The government on its part is saying, Vijay, and the government on its part is saying that comedy and satire is absolutely safe, that parody is absolutely safe. We are not going to touch it. But Abhishek, you're back on line with us. A quick question here. While the government can claim what it is claiming, the Bombay High Court today is saying that, reading your rules, it doesn't seem there is adequate protection to parody and satire that mildly even criticizes the government. You said we are jumping the gun, and the follow-up question I really wanted to ask you was this. We don't know if the tool is evil or not, right? But here's the thing. How can the government be the judge, jury, and executioner in its own case? Here is a rule. Here is a unit that, when it comes into being, will decide what is fake news, will not even ask the person who has allegedly put up that fake news, is this fake, is it not, why have you put it? It will simply pull it down. And if intermediaries, which means YouTube or Google or WhatsApp or Facebook, don't do it, then they will have to face the brunt. Isn't that excessive? Because a lot of criticism and concern is stemming from that I can't even challenge it.
So the point is this. Let's assume how this will play out is this. Let's assume that there is a particular comment that is put out on a social media. Now, let's assume that the fact check unit comes out, with a reaction to that and sends a notice to the relevant social media intermediary saying that this, as per us, is fake news of, a wrongful fact. Please take it down. That social media intermediary has 72 hours to respond to that as per the rules and take it down. Now, typically speaking, when such an instance occurs, it's supposed to give notice to the person who's actually published that content to possibly try and see whether they want to take any action in relation to the contention that has been received. Let's assume for a moment that message is not relayed to the person who's put out the content on the intermediary. Immediately upon that content being taken down, certainly that person has that notice and he or she can challenge that before a court of law. That is the time when the court of law actually will get into a review of whether or not this satisfies the test of 19.2 as a reasonable restriction or not. Even the other instances of Rule 3, let's assume I am a holder of a trademark, and I feel that someone who has put out a content on a platform is infringing my trademark. I am acting as a judge, jury, executioner by telling that intermediary to take down that content because of the fact that I have ownership of that. So here we are talking about a context of a platform that has ubiquitous and worldwide access. It has the impact of possibly creating issues that could affect various aspects of security or public order or otherwise. Now, certainly the government has the authority, has the power
here's the thing.
To be able to do it, to take it down. Now, as I said, I'm just completing the thought that in the event that it is felt that this is something which is an impingement upon my freedom of speech, I always have an option to go to court and seek an injunction on that.
But that is intimidation only, na? That is a situation where everyone will start self-censoring themselves simply because, you will get a fact check, things will be put down, then you have to spend money, hire a lawyer, go to a court of law. Isse acha chup hi raho. Essentially, that is the chilling effect that everyone has been talking about. Anil Tyagi, come in here. Give me a minute. Let Anil Tyagi come in here. Anil Tyagi, then this, today the question that was asked was, what is Kunal Kamra's locus? And the court said, we are not even questioning what his locus is because the locus falls under the ambit of freedom of expression. That is something that journalists will need to deal with. So much of journalism and very good, solid journalism right now is online.
I will, Shreya, just recall the 1954 when Winston Churchill the portrait was drawn by the Graham, the famous painter, After that, Winston Churchill resigned because the portrait was so ugly, because Churchill was becoming old. That was a factual portrait. What you call about it? If the facts is ugly and the government can't see the face of its own in the mirror, and who's at fault? And the second thing, we have decided in the Editors Guild of India, this is the beginning of the censorship. Our friend Mr. Malhotra is saying that you hire a judge, go to the court. No judge takes less than 5 lakh rupees today, and it's a very cumbersome process. It takes 7 to 8 days to write a petition and go to the court, and court has a will that whether to accept the petition or not. So it is just a deterrent tactic by the government to keep your mouth shut. That is the thing. And this all legalities and academic discussions, everything is provided in the Constitution. Why you are bringing out the amendment? There is a criminal procedure code, there are other civil codes, and we have other bodies. What is PIB? PIB is just facilitating counter for the journalists and propagating the government machineries, good and bad things both. And PIB does not have an infrastructure to check the fact checks. There are Press Council of India is there. There are Broadcasters Association of India is there. There is the Television Owners Association is there. There are many associations which are self-restrained in checking the facts. And nobody is so responsible in India, particularly in this regime, when the Modi has come. Modi has got the so fear and the so might there in the mind of the people right now. Nobody takes it presenting the wrong facts. And if you start in the morning at 8 a.m., the WhatsApp you see, so many wrong facts are coming. Who is spreading that? Everybody knows who has got a troll army of 800 people in this system, who starts in the morning the all kind of facts. Who will check it? It means you are just threatening the people.
It's an interesting question you ask.
Keep your mouth shut. And it is just starting the censorship regime. It is nothing more, nothing less. And Ministry of F&B is not a competent authority to check the fact check. I am telling you.
Okay. Your essentially, your argument is that this is the beginning of censorship in this country. Essentially, I mean, the amendments may look very benign. They may even look logical. But at the end of it, if you see what happens once the fact-check unit is notified, it could end up being very, very dangerous. Essentially telling everyone, keep quiet, don't say anything against the government, because not only will your content be pulled down, if you need to get that content up again, you will need to approach a court of law, which in any case is a big harassment. We leave it there for the moment. This has been a good discussion, a slightly complicated one, but a good discussion. I hope our viewers have taken away something from it. Sanjay Hegde, thank you very much. Shekhar Vijayan, thank you very much. Abhishek, good to have you on the show. And Anil Tyagi, thank you very much as well. Thank you for joining us. Now,